So in the literature review of this article, it talks about sex type behaviors and basically how it's been pushed onto children, and that's basically going to be the focus of this study. And early studies have shown that there's not really a relation, or there's little relation between sex typing in the home and how children perceive or like to use this sex type behavior. All and plus, like, since this study is a little older than most of them, all the studies prior to this date were done on children who had already achieved like an understanding about gender. And that's why in this study they focused on younger children, like 18 months, 27 months, and then 4 years, to get a full understanding of of what children understand about gender labeling and things like that. So basically, the focuses of this study were put on gender identity, gender labeling, sex type, sex type things like toys and the preferences that children have, and basically the awareness that they have on these stereotypes. And it's also the authors also looked at the expectations of traditional parents and how that would play a role in gender roles. So for the methods section of this article, the authors used 27 infants who and both of their parents, and they examined data on a longitudinal study of children ranging from 18 months to 4 years old. The children and their parents were observed at these ages. At 18 months and 27 months, like, so there was a gap between each of the ages, and the parents were also given several questionnaires with scales measuring like their traditionality and how they perceive sex roles. So at the age of 4, the children would also be brought back to the laboratory and given like a sex role learning index, because they would practically be seeing like how they perceive gender roles. In the results of this section, it was seen that boys received fewer negatives in the shared parenting sample um, at 18 and 27 months. So girls were receiving more negatives than boys in this situation. But it was also showed that for boys and girls, they recorded around the same percentage, around, I believe, 20% of their time using sex typed toys or sex time play. So they were, um, and they were also viewed the same by parents when concerning the sex typed play. The authors were convinced of um, basically labeling signals once knowledge was available and like in the conscious mind that it was um, instilled in children, and basically the learning of gender roles and labels basically consolidates a lot of children to know what gender is and basically adopt gender roles, and gender roles basically become accelerated. What was interesting about this study were that the differences in parenting roles appeared to like be reflected onto the child, but for egalitarian relationships or equal relationships, there were cases in which children were even showing signs of traditionality in these and in sex type behaviors. So it's kind of interesting to see how even in this type of relationship, it's not really forced on the child. They could still have a traditionality sense about them.